Before this video begins, I just wanted to apologize for how long this video took to get out. My previous Evangelion video had issues and I was forced to take it down, which is pretty frustrating, to be honest. Because of what happened with that video, it made me question kind of how I wanted to go about doing this video and how I want to do future videos. Ultimately, though, it was the message of this anime that pushed me to continue writing this script and make this video. I also just really enjoy this anime and the studio behind it. Traeger now owns the rights to Gurren Lagann, so I feel more comfortable moving forward with this video compared to their previous owners. I appreciate the continued support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. You know, it's funny. Evangelion took a lot of my trauma and presented it in front of me in a way that resonated. It allowed me to accept how I was feeling and why. It also showed me that sometimes being not okay is, well, okay. Gainax was able to capture the embodiment of human trauma and self-hatred no other anime, or really most mediums, can capture. This left me feeling raw and emotional, which is good because emotions are a part of everyday life. But what happens after? What happens when you have to rebuild? What happens when someone needs to start rebuilding their life after trauma? How does one go about finding the courage, self-worth, or motivation to begin that process? Enter Gurren Lagann. While Evangelion is a story about discovering that it's okay to be not okay, Gurren Lagann is the next step in that long road of finding oneself again. Coincidentally enough, Gainax, the same studio that created Evangelion, also created Gurren Lagann. I believe in a way they act as a mirror and natural progression for human evolution. I guess evolution of emotion. Gurren Lagann is about believing in yourself and letting others believe in you too. After coming to terms with the things I had been through in my life, finding the way forward to self-actualization was difficult. However, as lame as it sounds, and this is kind of the theme, I think, of Gurren Lagann, at least in the beginning, sometimes you just have to believe in the person that others believe in you. I don't know. It'll make more sense as the video goes on. When Gurren Lagann opens, Simone isn't presented as the hero he will eventually become. If anything, Kamina appears to be the main character, constantly pushing the plot forward, with Simone appearing to be his sidekick, if you will. As we are introduced to Simone the Digger, we see this timid, mild-mannered individual with no real aspirations or goals. They are trapped in an underground bunker with no understanding as to what is on the surface or why they are forced to live here. One of the first interactions we see Simone have is with some local girls in the village. They berate him for being dirty, weird, and carrying a small drill he found while digging underground. Simone just accepts their criticisms and walks away defeated. The sense of self-loathing is palpable. This is where the show introduces the force of nature that is Kamina. Kamina places the small drill around Simone's neck and reminds him that drills are part of his soul. This is the first step in Simone's self-actualization journey. This drill will prove far more valuable than he thinks in the moment. This interaction shows an important dynamic in the relationship between Kamina and Simone. Simone doesn't believe he is strong enough to live up to the expectations of Kamina. What he doesn't realize is that Kamina believes in him no matter his faults. He sees the unlimited potential bursting forward from Simone. They do this dance for the first act of this show. They enter into a dire situation, usually created by Kamina, and Simone wants to run away and hide. He doesn't believe he is capable of resolving the issues presented in the story. But Kamina is always there to push him to his potential, to fulfill the Simone Kamina knows he can be. This is an important factor that I believe we can connect to our world. Sometimes it's hard to stand on our own 2 feet. Sometimes we can achieve more if we allow ourselves to lean on the people closest to us. Sometimes it's not as simple as just believing in yourself. I've been there. My confidence was shattered at one point in my life. And while I'm still going through that, I am able to lean on the people closest to me. They push me to be the me that they believe in, which helps me believe in the me that I know I can be. I know it all sounds corny, dramatic even, but I think it's important to understand that the people in your lives, not only are they important to you, but they can also help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve, right? I mean, it doesn't seem that far-fetched of an idea, at least to me. With each conflict, Simon's confidence grows as the story moves forward, able to make more decisions on his own and even come up with plans that are more sensible than Kamina's. We see the blossoming of Simon's character development. At this point, though, his growth becomes a one step forward, two steps back kind of situation. He's slowly starting to believe in himself, but still needs that reassurance from Kamina to maintain that level of confidence. This all comes to a head in episode 8. Yes, that episode 8. Before the battle begins, Simon's confidence was already at an all-time low. He found out that Yoko, the girl that he started developing feelings for, actually liked Kamina instead. Learning this fed into Simon's already negative perception of himself, which in turn set Team Gurren on the back foot for this fight. Before we go on though, if you haven't seen, the show, it's 18 years old, and that is kind of on you, but I digress. I feel like it's important. I need to describe how the power system kind of works in this show. Spiral power is the focal point of this whole show. It is how Kamina and Simone are able to merge Gurren and Lagann into the titular mech, Gurren Lagann. The stronger someone's willpower is, the more unimaginable results incur. Fusing Lagann into Gurren was already something most people had never seen before. However, this is a double-edged sword. The weaker someone's will is, the less spiral power they generate. Anyway, you get the gist. Back to the story. Team Gurren wants Simone to fuse his Lagann with a giant mech? Ship? Boat? I don't know. Whatever this is. In the middle of this conflict, though, Kamina is grievously wounded. He seems he's able to fight through it, though. However, by the end, he succumbs to his wounds. Kamina, a beloved character by fans and integral to the plot, is killed. Something a lot of shows don't do, I think. I think it's a valuable risk that some shows can do correctly. This being one of them. This moment flips the entire story on itself. When I saw this for the first time, I was left wondering, what now? It seemed to come out of nowhere and shock everyone. Looking back now, though, I call that good storytelling. In Kamina's final moments, he states, and I think it's one of the most powerful lines in the series, and really sets the tone for Simone's character development. He states, "Listen, Simone, never forget. Just believe in yourself. Not in the Simone I believe in. Not in the Kamina you believe in. Have faith in the Simone that believes in you." And then he dies. And just like that, Simone is left to his own devices. This destroys Simone, but at the same time paves the way for the man he is supposed to become. This is where the story kind of folds back onto reality a bit. Of course, the mechs, the spiral power, the ridiculousness is fiction, but something about this scene resonated with me. In life, people die. Sometimes it's unexpected and random, and it hurts. Sometimes it's so painful that moving forward feels like an impossibility. Pain is a natural part of life. We learn and build ourselves up off the backs of these kinds of moments. Building the confidence to move forward without a loved one is difficult and cumbersome, but we have to keep moving forward, even if it's just in their memory. As much as that person was a support system for you, you are a support system for someone else. Honor their death. Honor it by being the person they believed you could be. Over the next couple of episodes, we see Simone grieving. The loss of Kamina is just too much to bear. He pilots Gurren Lagann with a vengeance, systematically eliminating enemies like an antibody to the plague, even going so far as to put himself in unnecessary danger. The new pilot of Gurren, Rossiu, is just left to accept how difficult of a process this is for both of them. The path forward after something like this is never straight. It's rocky, windy even, filled with emotional landmines that rocket you back to the moment of loss and pain. But moving forward is the only direction. For Simone, we see how hard this path is going to be. He criticized Rossiu when he dares to complain about the strain Simone's piloting is putting on him, stating with such vitriol that Kamina never complained about something like this. He draws comparisons of Kamina's leadership onto himself and realizes he, nor anyone else, can live up to that standard. He lashes out at people unintentionally. He hates himself for feeling like his own inadequacies got Kamina killed. He hates everything. I know this feeling very well. It is something I've experienced in my own personal life. Things have happened that have left me feeling angry. Angry at life. Angry at everyone around me. Ultimately, angry at myself. These next couple of episodes feel like a slow burn compared to the first 8. Even though the action doesn't really die down, even though Team Gurren moves forward with their goal of taking the surface back from the Spiral King, Simone's grief is palpable. It infects every aspect of every relationship in the show. Team Gurren is lost without a real leader. Kitan attempts to fill Kamina's place, but has neither the leadership nor infallible bravado to push them towards their next goal. I've known what it's like to lead. To try and fill the shoes of someone you consider greater than yourself. It's difficult and messy. People look to you to inspire them and trust in your judgment. This feeling of inadequacy Kitan and Simone are going through is something I, and a lot of people, can understand. Simone feels a sense of imposter syndrome. He knows he's not Kamina. But that's ultimately not the point. Kamina didn't want Simone to be him. He wanted Simone to be himself because of his tenacity to keep moving in the face of utter defeat. There is an important scene between Yoko and Kamina, where Kamina describes a moment when he and Simone were trapped in a tunnel. Kamina was starting to lose confidence they would survive their situation. But it was Simone's perseverance in the face of death that inspired him to keep moving forward and believing that they would eventually find their way out. This tenacity, this perseverance, is what Kamina believed Simone is capable of. It isn't until Nia is introduced into the mix that Simone starts to see a future outside of Kamina. She never met Kamina. She doesn't understand why people are so enamored by him. All she senses is the greatness Simone is capable of. Slowly, surely, she's able to start the process of pulling him out of his cycle of grief. Simone's drive to save Nia from danger reignites the spark to take the surface back. Not because Kamina wanted it, not even because Team Gurren wants it, but because Simone wants it. This is what it means for Simone to stand on his own 2 feet, to break through his grief and pierce the next ceiling. He still has Kamina's intensity, but now it comes with something Kamina was never good at: sensible judgment. Kamina was one to rush ahead, face any enemy by himself, even if the odds were stacked against him. Simone doesn't operate like this. He sees his team as exactly what it is: his team. However, at first, he still has to be reminded to trust in his team's ability to overcome their own obstacles. He doesn't have to carry all the weight. He doesn't have to win every single battle by himself. He comes into his own leadership style that is not Kamina's nor Kitan's, but Simone's. This is where we see Simone's true character development. He chooses his path and stops doubting himself. He's finally able to look at the next ceiling he wants to shatter: the Spiral King's death grip on progress. Simone's leadership has carried them to their seemingly end goal. They're at the capital. The fight with the Spiral King's forces is a brutal one. All seem lost in the middle of a fight, when a fleet of stolen battleships enter the fray to fight along Simone. Team Gurren has inspired humanity to rise and fight back against the Spiral King's tyranny. This gives Simone the opening to confront the Spiral King, Lord Genome. As the fight progresses, Simone learns a little bit more about spiral power. He learns that humanity's willpower is the defining limit of how far spiral power can reach. If one has unlimited will, they can functionally have unlimited power. I found this concept to be interesting. While in our world we have no concept of spiral power, no fictional sense of a power system, humanity has accomplished many great things off the backs of people's inability to shirk in the face of adversity. We see this concept materialized in athletes. Through rigorous training and sheer willpower, some athletes have accomplished seemingly impossible tasks. Strong men able to take cannonballs to the chest, men able to run 100 meters in just 10 seconds, people able to lift cars because their loved ones were trapped under them. While Gurren Lagann's spiral power is fiction, the actions of man that inspired this are not. As the fight comes to a close, Lord Genome's final breath comes with a warning. Once humanity's population has risen above 1 million, a cataclysmic event will begin, which will wipe them from the face of the earth. Simone doesn't see this as a warning, but just as another ceiling he will pierce when the time comes. Seven years pass between the defeat of Lord Genome and the next episode. I know, a time skip. Humans are returning to the surface and have built a new capital, Communist City. Victory over the Spiral King left them with the responsibility of rebuilding the government. Simone, now the supreme leader, is ultimately reduced to doing something he's never been good at: politicking. The people of Communist City have embraced this new life of convenience and luxury. Living on the ground is a stark contrast to how their lives were in bunkers. Food is abundant. Technology takes away the friction of their lives. Simone becomes a symbol of leadership, but also the symbol of blame when their safety and convenience is threatened. And as the city grows, Rossiu starts building policies that treat risk like an enemy. This is very different for Team Gurren. They're used to being reckless. They're used to taking risks. This is how they've gotten this far. The show spends the next couple of episodes showing the lives of Team Gurren. Everything is easier. Humans are progressing at an exponential rate thanks to the power of Spiral. But that final warning from Lord Genome looms on everyone's mind. Rossiu has taken the mantle of government seriously, almost obsessively so. The show almost wants you to believe that he is villainous, or at least antagonistic in his execution of policies. He expects the rest of Team Gurren to evolve into something they're not capable of being: pacified but stern leaders. This shift from reckless abandon boxes Simone in. He doesn't understand why he can't just fly around in Lagann and save the city like he used to. Change is a fickle thing. While on one hand, it's the natural progression of life. Everyone, every nation, must develop to survive. However, in that development, some foundational building blocks must be replaced or even outright erased. Once people have comfort, they protect it. And that's when progress starts getting treated like a threat. This all comes to a head when the population surpasses 1 million. The final warning comes to life and the anti-spirals attack. Simone fights again, and while he defeats the initial invasion, his recklessness comes at a cost. His fight caused people to become displaced from their homes, and the people of Communist City are pissed. Their comfortable lives are being threatened, and they turn on Simone. In their eyes, the hero of humanity becomes the bane of their existence. Simone is undeterred in his belief, though. Even as a tribunal sentences him to death, he's okay with it, as long as the people of Communist City are safe. It's hard to imagine leadership working like this in real life, without it turning into pure optics. This tug of war of ideologies between Simone and Rossiu is reminiscent of a book I read in college called The Death of Socrates. Essentially, it goes: Socrates is sentenced to death for his work being antithetical to the belief in the gods. While he is in prison awaiting his sentence, Crito, Socrates' friend, attempts to convince him to break out of prison. Socrates refuses because of his belief in the system. He knows that if he goes through with this breakout attempt, it 1. Flies in the face of Athenian law, and 2. Goes against his own personal belief in right versus wrong. He argued that doing a wrong to right a wrong was still wrong. Socrates prioritized living a just life over public opinion, believing one should listen to the wise and not the many. This ideal didn't last long in Simone's case. The anti-spirals return with a force big enough to destroy the entire planet, and Simone is free to fight against them, along with the rest of Team Gurren. Because without him, humanity is just doomed. What does it take to stand up against opposition that is all-encompassing? To walk a path so treacherous, so impossibly long to attain your goals? It takes an endless amount of confidence in yourself and the people around you. That is the culmination of Gurren Lagann. To stand against the threat of the anti-spirals is to stand against cosmic beings with no real understanding of how they operate. To Simone, it doesn't matter. Nothing, and I mean nothing, will stand in his way of human evolution. This is where the show really resonates with me. Simone has grown into a force of nature, incapable of doubting himself. Recklessness becomes power. Power to defy fate and break through the ceiling imposed on them by mysterious cosmic forces. To Simone, it's just another ceiling to shatter. To humanity, it's survival against all odds. I did want to go into the ending of this show, but at this point, I think it's important that you go, if you haven't seen it, that you go and watch the ending yourself. Partially because I think everyone should see this anime. I think it has important messages in there that, especially in this day and age, people can take and apply to their lives. But also because the ending is so bombastic and, quite frankly, insane that I could spend an entire script just writing about that. The ending is a culmination of human emotion and determination, and I just can't bring myself to spoil it. The final message of Gurren Lagann is not only determination when the odds are completely stacked against you, but also acceptance of the ever-moving forward progression of life. Life doesn't stand still for anyone. It is on us to seize the moment and capture and create what legacy we want to leave.